Good morning, good afternoon, Now community, and find questions and issues and answers that I can help you with to be a more effective ServiceNow administrator and developer. You get the thought process behind the answers, discovery, learning. It's all here today. It's a journey that we're all going to take together. Good morning, Carolyn. Good to see you. I apologize for being out the last couple of days. I had an emergency trip to Santa Clara, nothing personal, just a quick, hey, can you get up to Santa Clara to the corporate headquarters and help out with something, which I did. So there was no show Tuesday morning. There was no show Wednesday morning because I got back rather late and had to be on fire for our London launch event. If you missed that, you can always go back to our main site and catch that on demand. It was a wonderful experience to be able to share things like virtual agent and the platform. It was a good time. Lots of great people attending. Lots of good Q&A. We had live Q&A sessions going on, and had a wonderful time. That was the first time I did something like that, and look forward to doing it again in Madrid in about 6 months. So thank you if you joined us for the London live launch. Look forward to seeing you there. Rahul, good to see you as well. Let's get started with the pre-roll. If you are watching live on YouTube, give me a shout out in the chat room. If you're not watching, I encourage you to subscribe. Let's see if we got the traditional notification. Yes, we did. ServiceNow community live stream is live right now. YouTube will let you know when that happens each day so that you can join in, or you can sleep in when I'm not available. Well, if you're sleeping in on the West Coast. It's depending on where you are, you may be sleeping in. Never mind. Not going to go there. Jim, good to see you again. Thank you for the kind words about the London rollout. It was a wonderful event. I thank each and every one of you for participating, for being involved in the community, for being involved in the whole ServiceNow ecosystem. It truly is an honor and a blessing to be working with and working for you. So thank you very much. Let's skip the squishy stuff now and get on with the technical stuff. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, like something if you find something helpful in the next hour or so. Be sure you check that like button on YouTube to let others know that it was in some way helpful, provided some assistance. I notice a number of you are doing that. Thank you very much. There's even some good comments and discussions going on YouTube. We also do this on Twitch every day if you prefer to do Twitch. Haven't seen as many comments, but I do know we have some viewers over there. Thank you very much for continuing to do that. Just want to make this as available as possible. And if you've got any other ideas of where we can live stream this, I'm happy to entertain that as well. Looks like things are going well. I need to close that Twitch ad. It's always right in the wrong spot. There we go. So enough about Twitch. Let's get on with the rest of it. What's next? Community. If you've got something beyond just a shout out from where you're from, how's it going? I love London, that sort of thing. Let us know in the community. If you've got a question about your instance, your solution, your technical question, post that to the community. And of course, there are some wonderful suggestions. If you've never done this before, be sure to include some context. Let us know what you're trying to do, not just, hey, how do you pass 3 parameters to a script include? Why? What is it you need to do? I can offer you a technical solution that will probably pass 3 parameters to a script include. But is it the right? Are you doing this from a client script? Are you doing this from a business rule? What's the context? What problem are you trying to solve? Is a huge benefit to saying, there are several options you might want to consider. Here's the advantages of this one, and here's the cost of that one. And information like that is always helpful, and we'll try to convey that. But the better content you can provide, just like when you're getting requirements from your end users or your process owners, be sure to ask them for that information as well. What are we trying to solve? Don't just come to me and say, hey, I need a new field for this. Because I can make you a field for that, but it might really come and be costly later when nobody's using it right, or there's already another field. Carolyn says, cool, I like virtual agent. I open a request for a month visit to London. Wish it wasn't just in my PDI. Yes, there are some pricing things involved with virtual agent, with the bundle pro packages. I'm not totally up on the latest licensing stuff. But I am going to demonstrate, hopefully, if not today, then likely tomorrow, some things that I've learned about Virtual Agent in the last few days. That's why one of the reasons why I was called to Santa Clara was to talk about that. And I learned. And you know me, when I learn, I share. And you get to reap the rewards of that. So some of this is really, 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 really recent information that I like to share with you. Okay, enough about that. If you've been around the block a couple of times on the community, you've participated for a while, consider sharing that information with others in one of these ways. Participate, answer, yada, yada, yada. Make a blog post. If you don't have that access, let me know. Let the community know. Community@servicenow.com is the address for that. If you want, I encourage you, if you haven't already, personal developer instance for free. You can run London on that. You can test out Virtual Agent and many of the other capabilities that are new in London, along with all the good old traditional stuff that we cover. I use this as a sandbox instance. I can wipe it out anytime I like and start over. I can activate, and this isn't just me being able to do this. You can do this as well. You can turn on plugins that would normally cost money, like Performance Analytics Premium, like Orchestration, like Virtual Agent for ITSM and CSM and HR, and start building those conversations and learn more about it before you bring it into your enterprise. It's a good learning tool. We have free learning plans over at developer.servicenow.com. I encourage you. I recommended this to my Uber driver on Tuesday. He said, I want to be a developer. I said, developer.servicenow.com. That's all you need to know. And maybe he'll get started on that. So, Mohammed, if you're out there, don't know if you're watching this, but best of luck. Let us know. It's a wonderful community. It's a wonderful developer site. Free learning plans. Meetups. I encourage you. Go to meetups. Let's get rid of the title there. Meetup.com. The URL you see on the bottom of the screen. There are several this week. One of them tonight in, where are we? San Antonio, Texas. So look for those there. I will be on the road a bit in October, so fewer of these shows, but there's an opportunity to meet up with me at Now Forum Sydney. There's a developer meetup on October, what's the date? 12th? 11th. October 11th in Melbourne. I'll be at the developer meetup in Melbourne on October 11th. I will be at the Munich developer meetup on October 15th, and then at Now Forum on the 16th, 17th. Yes, that's what it is. That it? No, 17th, 18th. Whenever Now Forum is. Because you can find those over at the events, because I can't remember the dates offhand. I just got all of that booked earlier this week. So it's locked in. 2 developer meetups, 2 Now Forums, about 2 weeks. In mid-October, there are some other developer meetups and dev days and whatnot. Developer Days San Diego is coming up, so I'll be there. So if you want to meet me in person, or you just want to talk shop, or I'm in town and have a few minutes, let's see if we can get together. I'd love to talk to you face to face. Okay, enough about that stuff. Let's get on. We do have a couple more reminders. Those are the events. Tech Now episode 56 is coming up in less than 2 weeks. This is October 25th when it's being held. Craig Stepp is going to cover Integration Hub and extending your capabilities with custom spokes. I also have this on my list in Flow Designer. I think I mentioned this in previous episodes of this series, that there are a couple of utilities that I find wanting in Flow Designer, and there's no reason why I don't see I can build these. I've suggested them to our product managers and said, hey, there are times when all I need to do is increment a counter on a record. We don't have the equivalent of a plus plus. I'm going to show you how to build that. It's not that hard. I really, really want to do this today. Let's see if we have time to do that. There are times when I need to get a property. Wouldn't it be nice to have property-driven, the access to equivalent of gs.getProperty to get a property in Flow Designer so that you can then make changes to your flow's behavior based on system properties. Now, the idea of Flow Designer is, I'm getting off topic here a little bit, but the idea of Flow Designer is to enable no coders to be able to do some of these actions. we're starting to get into a gray area. Do no coders understand what properties are? Well, that might be something that you can work with in a partnership of people who don't code, leveraging people who do code. So say my admin on the system goes into my custom app and builds a property that says, how many days would you like to wait until X? Or how many days should we, if the state of a record goes from A to B, let's add X number of days onto the due date. Well, if they change that number of days, it's easy to do it with a system property. You could even do that in production to change the behavior of that flow rather than going back to dev, modifying the flow, putting it to UAT. Just to say I went from 5 days to 7 days on this silly property, that's too much overhead, in my opinion, for changing the behavior of a flow. Those are the kinds of things that are best driven by properties. I want to show you how to build a flow action for GSGet property. So that's a teaser of what I hope to accomplish today. We've got an hour. Don't know if we're going to get to that, but if you want to find out more on how this works with Integration Hub, you can register at the URL you see there on the screen. Wow, long spiel for one slide, but giving everybody a chance to catch up and get online and join us. I encourage you to go to, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead one slide. I encourage you to go to the Customer Success Center to continue your ServiceNow journey, best practices, customer testimonials. Lots of good information there, always being updated and posted. I recommended an update yesterday, and I believe it's going to be posted today. So keep visiting. You want to get that. Any code that I write today will be available on GitHub. So you can use the URL there. Every day that I broadcast has code is put into date folder. So if I write any code today, it will be in the September 13th, 2018, or more technically 2018-09-13 folder. Because that way they sort by year and month and day. And chronologically, you can go forward, you can go backwards. I don't even know if you can do sorting on Git, but that's the idea. Let's get into the community. This is our community. Again, community.servicenow.com. If you're new to joining me, thank you for joining. I'm going to go through a few questions and issues here. My specialty is in custom applications, integrations, and the platform in general. So that's the area of focus I'll be. I may branch out into other areas. There's learning opportunities to be had all over the place. Maybe you can learn, maybe I can learn, maybe we can share, that sort of thing. Maybe you know things that I don't know. That's what the chat is good for. Let's find out what's in here. If you see me skipping over topics, you'll understand why. It's just not my area of focus. So I'm going to do a quick page refresh on that. Make sure that my personal developer instance is still awake. Developer.servicenow.com. Get your free personal developer instance. That one's running London. I know, I'm just delaying while I get this going. Some people may be just joining. Rahul says, how to get deleted choices from background script in Kingston. I have checked in system definition deleted records, but no record found. Is there any way to restore those deleted choices? Are you talking about the records on sys_choice, that table? I don't know if those are tracked as deleted records or not. We could find out real fast. But better question for the community, Rahul. Those are, if you haven't already posted that. If you have, shoot me the sys_ID of the community post. I try not to answer questions like that in the video live if that come up in the chat, because it's very hard for others to find and leverage and learn from that information unless they're watching the video. Now you think we've got tens of thousands of people on the community and a couple hundred watch this video. So the real benefit is going to be in the community where people can search for that answer and say, deleted choices, for example. You can't search like that in YouTube because there's no real transcript for this. So that's the benefit of posting questions like that in the community. Learn, share, search, all that good stuff. Reject solution case for customer service management. I am not in customer service management. IT service management, CAB workbench. Issue with / in user ID using JSON for inbound incident creation via REST integration. This sounds something I might be able to dig into. I am working with a requirement for creating new incident tickets from REST in which we have some field value that need to be filled in for creation, for which one user For one is user information, for which we are using user ID. There are different formats for user ID in the system, so I am using the below piece of code to create this, but it's not working. Incidentally, this is a /. Kids, this drives me nuts, and I'm sure I might be a little bit pedantic, but it probably also drives others crazy. Let me demonstrate this just so you know. This is a /. You use them in JavaScript for comments. You use them for division in mathematical expressions. This is a /. Okay. I hate to break it down to this basic level, but certain people are using these terminologies incorrectly. And it could, in a technical environment, if I were to say to you over the phone, type in something, something, / something, you could do damage to your system. You could get incorrect results. It may not even work. So be sure you use the right terms for the right characters. I'm not going to go over the other characters on the keyboard. Backslashes are not used in URLs. And there is a spam call again for me. Okay. Don't save that. I don't need that. That's not code we're going to save. All right. So I don't mean to rip on this. It's just striking me a little odd this morning. Okay. Using this piece of code does not work in combination of anyone faces the same issue. I've tried using replace and regex functions, fixing this, but it's not working. User type 1, ABC. User type 2, ABC.def. And user type 3 has something delimited by /. User ID as /, even before we tried replacing / with /, which is called escaping the character, depending on what language you're using or what, it may be different ways. You may have to do different things with this. JSON, script REST API post. User info is request_string.user. User information is replace / with /. Whoa, wait a minute. Script include ABC. We're including some code in here. What is it? They're getting it from the remote system as that? The other option would be to encode this. Okay, replace it with like %3f or whatever the / character is, and do that. This is getting kind of crazy in here, calling user info. They're very complete in their code. I just don't have time to digest and process all of this in my head. This is following a question from the community, if anyone has any information. The other option you could try is the let me see if I can find it in here. In our developer portal, we also have all the scripting APIs. URL encode. And I thought, stop making me sign in. Stop it. I'm already signed in. It's going to be a pain in the butt. Okay, log in. Developer portal is being a bit finicky. I don't know what I just logged into, but apparently I'm logged into the developer portal somehow. I don't have credentials to do that. Can anyone say slight bug somewhere? Just to make things a little more insane free. Let's log out and log in again. Not sure what that was all about. This is a live show, people. That means there's no editing going on. What you see is what I do. Get my work credentials in there, not the other credentials. Now, let's look for URL encode again. One more time, search URL encode. And we have an API method called URL encode, which I believe does that % thing. Thought there was an example in here. Encodes non-ASCII characters, unsafe ASCII characters, and spaces, uses % encoding. So let me get that and go back to this question. Rather than regex, have you tried using gs.url encode? It replaces unsafe characters with percent equivalent. Let's put a link to that, because that's what you do when you use the internet, is you link to things. Paste that, save that, and there's a counterpart called gs.url decode. Verify that, because my memory's a little rusty. There's URL encode, which means decode should be right above it. Yep, good. Used to be a string util that did that at one point, but I don't remember where that is. Hey Chuck, what editor is it? This one that I was using is Visual Studio Code. It's available on Windows and Mac, and I love it for a couple of reasons. One is it's got a built-in integration to GitHub. So when I create something here, I can save it to a folder, I can do my commit, I can do my sync, all from the editor. I like that. It goes a little bit beyond the basic text editor. It's got your usual text editor, things like tabs and coloration for various languages. So it's a pretty nice editor for free. Microsoft, it's one of the few Microsoft products I enjoy loading on my Mac. Will you be showing up on CreatorCon London? Yes, I will. I will be there, and I will be running the builder tracks. I've got all my content built out for that, Steve. We're going to be doing 3 builder tracks, no code sessions to build an application. You've probably seen me demo this a couple of times. It's our safety application that takes an old ugly spreadsheet in a series of 3 sessions. So session 1 is building your first app in an hour. Now, it's a 2-hour session, so you say, why is it called building your first app in an hour? Because I talk for about the other hour with basic introduction information about the platform, what you need to get started, each of the capabilities. But we're going to go into Studio, build a table, import a spreadsheet, do some column layout, do some list layout, make a choice table, explore visual task boards, maybe get into a UI policy as a stretch goal. So that's our first lab. Second lab is going to be building logic around that, business rules, reference qualifiers, and flow designer. And then in the third session, we're going to talk about the user experience, putting a button on service portal or building a record producer, making that user input much, much easier for the end user experience. And then people go, wow, is that all it takes? And in none of this are we going to be writing any script. So that's the cool part about all this stuff, is it's going to get, the goal is to introduce people like architects, enterprise architects, and process owners, line of business people to create applications. The traditional go-to for creating applications has been to go to IT people, and the backlog grows and the talent pool is finite, but there's still a lot of applications in your enterprise that need to be written to do this, what we call digital transformation. It's a long tail that says, okay, IT's writing this much, and there's all these other applications that still need to be written. You can enable your no-coders to do that. Now, that's not to say that you're giving them total rights and say, here, abracadabra, you're developers. It becomes a collaborative effort. They're going to get to certain points in their applications and say, you know what, I need a custom service portal widget, or I need that activity or action to be built. That's where the pro coders come in, figure out what the needs are for that specific piece, build it out, let them instantiate it, and run with it. And you've got a little bit bigger library for the next set of no-coders that come along. So that's, long story short, yes, I will be in London. Hope to see you there. All right, we answered one question, or we got one moving, not technically answered, but I provided a potential solution to that. Let's get going. How do I get the date of last Wednesday? This comes up quite frequently. I suspect it's already been answered. I want to get the date of last Wednesday in a client script. I don't like doing date manipulations in client scripts. I just don't trust them. Every browser has a slightly different implementation of client scripts. You could probably find this on Stack Overflow. That's where I'm going to look. JavaScript, date of last Wednesday. I would rather do this as a server-side script, because then you can take a day of the week and say, you know, if this is Sunday, subtract 5, that kind of thing. So get last week date in jQuery JavaScript Stack Overflow. Make that a little bigger. Sometimes the answers, if it's purely client script, I don't go to ServiceNow for these answers. Somebody has already figured this out. I'm trying to make this dynamic so the results of the variable are always 1 week before the current date. Here's what I've calculated. Here's an answer. You can use get last week. Do they write the get last week function, or is that built in? Some of these look like they're built in. Okay, so today is a new date object. That's going to be the key to driving any of this. You'll need to understand what today is, and then can we subtract? Can we add? You know what? I'm going to simply steer them here. Okay. I see two choices here. Two choices. You can try to do this. Do this all client side. I found this article on Stack Overflow, which might be helpful. Highlight, paste link in a new window. I prefer to do this via Glide Ajax and use server-side code with methods like days ago and add days. Was it add days? To get specific differences in dates. Using, come on, the Glide Date Time API. Let's also put a link to that in the product documentation. Let's go to search, Glide Date Time. Over on the developer portal, again, going for those APIs. Constructor, Glide Date Time, works with something, works with nothing. You can put that in, click, paste. Using server-side code, let's test easier and use it in multiple places. All right. To learn more about Glide Ajax, who knows the number? TechNow episode number. I invite you to watch episode 33 of TechNow. And include the list. Done. How about that? I'm sure somebody will come up with a full-blown script that does just that thing. Again, I'd like to know what the context is behind doing this. Sounds simple enough technically, but is it the right solution for the right problem? Don't know. Let's do a refresh on this because our list is getting a little old. We also have one thing in the inbox so we can go track down, keep the conversation going. Somebody asked us last night, I believe it was, how to set a jelly variable and do something. So let me pop that out into its own window so it's a little easier to read. They've got a bit of code in here, and what they did is they put it inside a script. Now the script tag is a client-side script. This is not how you do Jelly code. Jelly code is all run and pre-processed on the server. If you want to learn more about Jelly, episodes 1, 2, and 3 of TechNow are available. So I said I scanned a little bit and I found that you should be using g:"evaluate. That's the server-side equivalent to do that. They're close. They're very close. And I said watch episode part 2 of TechNow. Around the 17:45 time mark, I found some information that might be helpful. Thanks for the answer, but my point was how to add more things in JVAR under file, like if it is hello and I want to add the word to, or add the word world to it. Wow, that's just a tongue twister, especially for me this time of day. How this got into Agile release management, I don't know. If they want to do, it's the same concept. Same concept. He's setting the file to a record asset tag name. He's trying to concatenate two values here. I would not do this with a jvar set. I would do this with a, Okay. This would be done in, I would use the gevaluate to use jelly.var1, jelly.jvar1, and jelly.jvar2 to add them together inside gevaluate and return the result. Oh, it's been a really long time. No, this is untested code, and I'm going from memory, but it would look something like this. Okay, I'm going to rely on his example up here where I don't even have it. It's going to be, hey, look, I can actually do this in XML for once. Gevaluate, is it jelly equals true? It's jelly equals true to get the jelly variables there. It's not an object, so I don't have to say object is true. Well, let's close the gevaluate. Evaluate. Make sure my tags match. That's why it's untested code. And then do var string equals jelly.jvar1 plus space plus jelly.jvar2. And you can simply say that later in your jelly code, what's the debug? You could do, well, you don't even have to do it. String equals string, I think. Yeah, you can just do that. Subtract that so that it's clickable, add that so that it's readable. I don't think you just need to put string in there. It's been a long time since I did my jelly code, but that's a very simplistic example. I said, I'll make sure that gets off to GitHub for later. So, whew, the jelly code is hurting my brain. Let's do one more. Then I want to get into the Flow Designer action thing. So a little bit of community, a little bit of learning. Will you be showing up? We already read that one. Okay. Good morning. If you're just watching, this is the community live stream. We do a little bit of Q&A live on the community, see what we can find. Answer some questions, move the ball down the field, as they say. How to copy task planned effort, that's ITBM. What are strategic and operational demand? In the developer community, this doesn't feel like it's in the right place based on the subject, but let's find out. Can anyone give examples for strategic and operational demands? You know what? I'm going to ask for details. Can you please provide some additional details on what you're trying to accomplish? Details, table names, catalog items are encouraged. Screenshots, always appreciated. We had 3 views on that. People are scratching their heads going, I have no idea what this is about. Asking for help is helping. All right. Need help with jelly scripting, displaying custom icon beside the incident number in the incident form if the checkbox acknowledge is true. Well, it sounds like we're getting some context of what they're trying to do, but easiest way would be to use a reference icon and put it somewhere else. This is UI macro. Pardon, I'm not yet proficient in jelly scripting. Okay, they're going to, this is again getting pretty deep. We're getting an incident using the current number. What is current? How do you know what current is? It's a G2 evaluate, J1 test. All right, here's part of the problem. We've got this acknowledgement flag, which is being passed as jvar-ac out of the G2 evaluate. There are 2 phases to jelly. This is happening second. So your script is, your check is running in phase 1. There are 2 phases. If it says J, it's just phase 1. If it says G colon, it's phase 1. If it says J2 or G2, you're using phase 2. And this is checking in phase 1. You're mixing up phase 1 and phase 2. Okay. The first thing I note is that your geevaluate is running, it's G2 evaluate in phase 2 processing, and you are trying to check variables in phase 1 with a J if. It was an if, right? Not a while. Yeah. Okay. These should match. Either use G2, J2, or GJ. So they are both happening in the same phase. It's like passes on a processor. You know, you got your preprocessor that comes along and does initial definitions and swapping out values with strings, that kind of thing. And then you've got the actual compiler that comes along and compiles the code. Same kind of thing here. There's a phase 1 where it does the initial processing, and then there's a phase 2. Generally, the two don't talk to each other. There are reasons why you want to do those, although those reasons why you want to do things in one phase versus the other. Although towards the end of my jelly scripting days, it got a little cloudy as to when you want what and why. I generally just try to do everything in phase 1, see what happens. Benchmark your performance. You know what? I'm going to stop there. We got 20 minutes, and I really, really want to show you more about the Flow Designer actions. So what I want to do is capture this in a global update set because I want to make this distributable at some point. So let's create a new update set. Local update sets, pretty standard stuff here. If you've been to sysadmin or system foundation fundamentals, whatever we're calling it today, and I'm going to call this, don't know where it came up with that name, but we're going to call this Flow Utilities Spoke. Description we'll fill in later. Submit and make current. Then let's go over to Flow Designer. There it is. Bring that up. Flow Designer, if you're not familiar with it, is the new generation of doing workflow management. Think of it initially as not a replacement for the old workflow, but a modern approach to business rules and scheduled jobs. That will help get your head around this. They are activated by triggers. I'm not going to create a new flow initially. I'm going to create an action, and then I will test it on a flow. So let's first, let's create the flow first. Why not? We'll have a blank palette. I'm going to test this on a flow called test flow. Initially, I'm going to make the use case that I needed last weekend, because that's what nerds do, is they program on the weekend, or do development in my case. And I am going to, I don't really need a trigger on this, but whenever let's say an incident is created, the reason I don't need the trigger is because I'm going to use the test button. Now, let's create our action. So new action. And the action is a reusable block of component that you pass parameters to and you expect outputs. So my use case was every time one of these Amazon dash buttons is clicked, I wanted to increment a counter on a record so that I could use a lookup rule and say, hey, if the button was pressed once, it's a P4. If the button is pressed twice, it's a P3. If the button is pressed 3 times, as the button click goes up, the priority also goes, quote, up, because priority 1 is the highest priority. That being said, I didn't have a way in Flow Designer to do that. So I started out with about 60 lines or so of code in a script include for creating the record and updating the record and incrementing the counter and looking up, does this button have all this stuff, which dissolved immediately when I started building this in Flow Designer. But the one thing I needed was a way to say increment the counter field. And that became an issue. So I said, well, I could just make a simple flow or a simple action to do a plus plus, equivalent of JavaScript or many other programming languages that just increment a counter. I said, wait, that's very specific. Wouldn't it be nice to have some sort of simple math utility that did addition, subtraction, division? If you just wanted it to decrement, you could say, take this value and subtract 1 from it and return what the other value is. Or take this value, divide it by 3 and give me the result, and I'll figure out what to do with that later. So basic math, we're going to call this basic math. That's going to be the name of our action. It's going to reside in the global scope, available to anyone who wants to use it. And I'm going to, again, fill in the description later before I distribute this. Now, what I'm given here is the action palette, the action builder, action designer. I'm not even sure what you call this thing, but it has a series of inputs to the action, and then each step that I build can have inputs and outputs to itself. So think of this as, what are the macro things that I need to pass into this? I am going to go to inputs, and I can't see, but there it is, because my font is so large, it kind of messes with things. I've got create input. I need to pass 2 numbers. So there's going to be number 1. This is a label that will appear to the user when they activate this action on a flow. I'll show you where that comes in, because there's a slight difference between naming your inputs and naming your variables. I'm going to make that a floating point number so that I'm not limited to just integer operations. It's going to be mandatory. You can't do mathematical operations without supplying a couple of parameters. I'll create another input. This one's going to be an operator. And we'll make this a choice. And it gives me some other choices here. It says, what do you want to do? Do you want a choice list without none? Yes. I wouldn't want to say number 1, number 2, and don't do anything with them. That doesn't make any sense. So let's leave off none. And my choices down here are added to, we'll do addition. The value will be addition, because I like to read what my values are. I got an order for this. Let's collapse that for a second, just so we can see this whole action builder, variable builder. We'll do subtraction. Don't know if I'll get this all built out, but subtract. Let's just change this to add so that I don't have to put ION on the end of everything. Consistency is key. I'm going to make another one called multiplication. Multiply. And division, of course. Say / divide. And one other that I don't use often, but it's really handy to have, the percent operator for you programmers will know the modulus operator, or modulo. That takes the remainder. So if I said 5 modulo 3, I would say, what's 5 divided by 3? Well, 5 divided by 3 is 1 and some fraction. It's the remainder of that. So 5 modulo 3 would be 2. It's handy to know if you're doing like a rolling set of things. Maybe every third line in your list should be green, for example. So when 5 modulo 3 is 0, use a background of green, otherwise use a background of white. Something like that. You get the idea. It's a way of using the remainder. That's my inputs. Oh, I need one other input. Oh, the operator, yes, that should be mandatory also. I need one other input. It's going to be way down here, and that will be my second number. Let's do floating point. Save that, because I like to save often. So I have 3 operators. Did I make this mandatory? I need to make that mandatory. Save that. 2 numbers and an operator. 1 plus 2. And I want some result. So let's keep building this. These are the action inputs. Now I get into the steps. And I add a step with this little plus right here in the steps. In this case, I want to add script. Don't freak out on this note that says requires a subscription for integration. You only need an integration hub license if you're doing outbound REST messages, if you're doing integrations with other systems. If you're doing basic scripting like this, you don't. So we're working on correcting that information. I've been fooled by this, and I talked to Josh Narius earlier this week. He said, yeah, we need to fix that. So we are going to fix that. I'm going to use some variable. This is the script variables. What does the script need to know to do this? So I've got my action variables up here, but the steps down below need to leverage those. So my variable here is going to be number 1. This is what's going to be used by the inputs variable in my function. Number 1 is going to be, I can either drag and drop from here, number 1, the actions variable. So there's an interaction. I can choose to use these at any step or not to use these at any step. Since this is so simple, I will use it anyway. Let's create another variable, which is going to be my operator, and that will use the action operator. You go, well, Chuck, why didn't you just define them here? Again, different scopes to these variables. I may not need every variable in every scope, and it may actually be confusing and confounding. And apparently I didn't name that one number 2. Let's go fix that real quick. Go back to my action inputs, because if I saw a label that said that would be horribly confusing. Save it there, because I like to save often. And now I think I need to do a redraw, because it did not update my label there. Oh, it still didn't update my label. Let's find out if it wants to play nice. Number 2 is going to be this floating point number. Still didn't get it. Did I save? Are my variables right? Did I mess up somewhere? Number space 2. Don't make me delete that and republish it. Okay, there's number 2. There's number 2. There's just number, get rid of that. Do that again. I like to make sure everything lines up first. I can either drag and drop it here, or I can use what we call the data pill picker. Just right here, inputs, number 2. Because dragging and dropping didn't want to work for whatever reason. Then I get into my function. All right, here's where the action actually happens. In this case, it's one step. I'm going to first get that operator equals inputs dot operator. Did I say operator or operation? Operator. Operation is a function. Dot toString. Why do I put the toString on there? Because I want to make sure this is a string. I'm going to use it as a switch statement. It's going to tell me what do I actually need to do with these numbers when I start to use them. That's the whole key to this, is what am I doing? If I just leave it as inputs.operator, I've been fooled too many times by objects. Switch statements don't work with objects. They may look like strings, they may walk like strings, they may talk like strings, but they're not strings. So I am just forcing this type to be a string. Let's fix the alignment on that. And then I can get into my switch operator. Let's also do the same thing here. Just for safety's sake, I'm going to say num1 equals inputs. Ooh, not that, not that. I want to do parse float, JavaScript built-in function to turn inputs dot, stop typing ahead for me, number 1, and copy that. Sorry, wrong line. Copy the whole line for number 2. All right, let's make sure those are actual floating point numbers. Now I can do a switch on operator, put in the closing curly brace. We'll do a case add, and when it's add, I'm going to have an answer. So var answer equals, we'll make it 0 at this point. I don't like that as a default, but it is what it is. Answer equals, when I'm adding, I'm going to simply take num1 plus num2. Break. When I am subtracting, I'm going to take answer is num. This is where you go back to first grade primary school stuff. Num1 minus num2. Break. Case multiply. And I get answer equals num1 times num2. Break. 2 more to go. Stay with me. case divide. If you see anything crazy, scary, don't understand, I made a horrible mistake, please let me know. Num1 divided by num2. This is why I used floating point for all of this, so that I can get back modulo. I can get back floating answers. I see a problem. There's a semicolon right there because I almost did it on that last one. Check the others real quick. They all look okay. Answer equals num1 mod num2 break. Finally, I need to pass that out of this step as outputs dot answer equals the answer variable. And down here is where I give it the answer. I have to associate this, just like I did with the inputs, associate this with something else. It's going to be a floating point number, because if I don't do that step, and it's easy to miss, the script step doesn't have any way to pass information to the action output. That's really what I'm after. So it's like a double layer of insulation here. I can have script steps talking to other script steps with variables and whatnot, but it's only what I expose to the user who puts this on their flow do they get the output variable, which is going to be answer from the script step answer. That's how the information's passed around in those. Want to test it? Let's go to our flow. And I have to turn on an option here under the... I learned the name of this 3-dot menu. It's called a kebab, because sometimes they're lined up horizontally and it looks like a shish kebab. Just like there's a hamburger menu, there's a kebab menu. So now you learn that. I didn't know that nickname for that menu. Learn something new every day. That was my trip to Santa Clara. Well, I learned a lot of things. In here, I want to show draft actions because I haven't published this action yet. This is what allows me to test it. So I've got my trigger, which said, I thought I had this in here, anytime an incident is created. Maybe I didn't save it. Maybe something happened. So anytime an incident is created, again, totally irrelevant because I'm not going to be using it. And if I go to actions, I should have a global basic math. How about that? And in here, I've got my numbers and my operator. So let's just do something simple like 5 plus, hey, I thought I said none was not in there. Take another look at that. In my definition, my choice list definition, expand that. Default is plus and drop down without none. Interesting. Save that again. We'll look at it next time. Okay, so here's basic math. Whatever, I'm not sure. Okay, it's listed. Anyway, that might be a bug. Basic math, open that up. 5 plus 10. Easy to do. There's my action, done. And once I get it, let's log the output. This is going to be a very, very simple flow. So underneath ServiceNow core, there is a log, and I can log what my basic math answer is. If you really want, you can say basic math addition 5 plus 10 equals, done, save, test. Wait for it. Steve wants his kebab menu with extra fries. I'm getting hungry playing with ServiceNow. I've got kebab menus and hamburger menus. Test. Now here I don't really need a record. It's not going to run the trigger, but it could use information from this record. I'm not even using that. This is a simple test. It runs the flow. I click this blue link to see the output, and it says your basic math completed, your log completed, and I can expand that to see number was 5, my operation was add, it's going to do 10, my output answer is 15, therefore in my log I see basic math of 5 plus 10 is 15.0 because it's a floating point result. It will display it as a floating point number. You could also update your action to say, what do you want to return it as? Integer, floating point, etc. If you wanted to make this action a little smarter. So I've got basic math. Why would I want that? You ask? Because I may very well need to do basic math on, say, the incident. Maybe take let's find an integer in here. Business resolve time. For whatever reason, it didn't put that in there. Let's find a different integer, since that one, well, fine, whatever. It's too big. I don't know what's going on with that. Child incidents. There's a count. Doesn't want to let me do this. Oh, because those are it's a floating point field and those are integer variables. Silly me. That could be an issue. Ooh, we may want to do basic integer math. This should probably be rewritten as basic floating point math. Haha. I didn't realize that when I did that. Basic, we'll write it decimal math because non-programmers won't know what floating point means. Okay? And then we could write an integer version of this as well. So let's find, I didn't know that was going to happen. It's not letting you mix and match the data types on here. Good for non-programmers, frustrating for programmers. So do we have any floating point numbers in the incident record that I can play around with? Probably not. Probably not. Reference date choice. We could put one on there. Yeah, that's probably easier than rewriting our action at this point in the program. Let's do this. Let's go to incident. Add a field real quick. What is that? SysID is not valuable. That is a dumb shortcut. I'm not sure where that came from. Let's do a quick configure form layout. Fast way to adding a field. We could also have done the table. Go down here and say, I need a floating point number. Let's call this floating point number because I really can't think of any good variable names at this point. Make it of type floating point number, add it to the field, add it to the form, shows up at the bottom. We don't want it below contextual search. Let's put it there, right below assigned to. And now, once it's done saving our form layout, we see it right below assigned to. We'll give this a number of 1.5. Update that, and that was on record 1. My incident is not defined in sysscript something 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 business rule. Did it even save or did it just crash out? No, it saved it. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that error right now. We'll figure out what this is. This is the fun of personal developer instances. Want to try and wrap this up at the top of the hour. Now we should be able to take, let's save that. I just want to save it to get the incident record refreshed. Go to our basic math and see if our floating point number is in there. F, didn't get it. We'll do a complete redraw on this. I don't know if I have to close and reopen the, let's do that instead. Flows. Where's my basic math test? Test flow global? I think that's what I called it. Test flow global, there it is. Basic math, data pill picker, go to the incident record and find my FP num. Yay! So I could say, take this floating point number and add 1 to it. So 1.5 should become 2.5. Again, it doesn't seem like a very worthwhile exercise, but it's very frustrating when you don't have this. Let's find incident 001, 001. What do you mean you don't have that one? Was it or was it not in there? What was the number of the record I was using? Oh, it's 001. Fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There it is. Use that. Run that. Once I have that value, I can update the record with it in the next step. So here's my log. It ran. My output is 2.5. Again, I didn't do anything with it yet because, let's get rid of that test flow execution. Go back to our test flow. I would then need to, of course, insert a new action to update the record. And which record do I want to get? I want to trigger the update the trigger record and set the FP field to the basic decimal math answer. And that way 2.5 gets saved back into the database. Very easy to do, very simple. Maybe tomorrow I'll do a get property or a trigger event. We'll see how that goes. But learn something too. Didn't know it would prevent you from mixing and matching the data types. It would seem like you could take integer math and extend it to decimal math. But you can't put an integer variable where a floating point is expected. It's got some sort of reference qualifier or equivalent of it at that point. All right, that takes us to the top of the hour. I will, as promised, save the script from here, just as I promised, into here. Simple decimal math script step. And I will get that saved in just a moment. So that takes us to the top. Thank you for joining me again. I encourage you to participate in the community, community.servicenow.com. Check out the events on the events page and get yourself a free personal developer instance, all that wonderful stuff. And with any luck, barring any more emergency business trips, I will see you again here tomorrow. Take care. Bye.